Think of a woman, she's middle-aged, has 3 kids, takes them to soccer practice, has shorter hair, and often wants to speak to the manager of a store. Now think of a name for her. She's called Karen, isn't she? The Karen phenomenon is something that's taken the internet by storm. However, the name Karen isn't the single example of this. There are many names we associate with certain kinds of people. Why is this the case? Well, simply put, stereotypes. I'm sure you've heard of stereotypes before. The OED defines them as a widely held but fixed and oversimplified image or idea of a particular type of person or thing. The ideas we have for stereotypical people are normally shaped by what they look like and the traits they have. However, names can help form stereotypes too. It's because of these stereotypes that we come to associate certain names with certain kinds of people. But what kinds of people are these? What backgrounds do they come from, and why are these names linked to these kinds of people? However, before we really look into this, I just want to clarify that in this video we are looking at stereotypes. Stereotypes really aren't the nicest of things, simply put. They are damaging to huge groups of people who through no fault of their own have been cast as a stereotype. So in this video, when I talk about stereotypical names, please remember that I'm talking about them in reference to the type of person they're stereotypically linked to. I'm in no way saying that all people with a certain name act in a certain way or are a certain kind of person, because that simply isn't true. And if your name gets brought up in this video, then please once again remember that we are just talking about stereotypes, and I definitely don't believe any of these ideas myself. And there are many names that we do associate with certain people, some reasons being far more obvious than others. Let's start with one of the most obvious ways in which we associate names with a kind of person, and that's to do with their nationality. There are certain names that are so synonymous with certain parts of the world that when we hear of people with these names, we presume they're from a certain country. As an example of this, we don't need to look too far away. My name is Patrick, a name heavily associated with Ireland and the Irish, so a lot of people like to ask me if I'm Irish, or maybe just presume I am if they just saw my name. I guess it doesn't help that I wear green either. Take a name like Pierre too. Pierre is a name so strongly associated with France that if you read someone's name is Pierre, you may very well think they are French. People's nationalities play a pretty large factor into why they end up associating names with a certain kind of people, and this is due simply to the fact that many of these names come from the languages of the nation they are associated with. Now, if you thought nationality was an obvious answer, wait till you hear the next one. As dumb as it might seem to even point out, gender obviously plays a huge role in this too. A huge amount of names are associated with a specific gender. In fact, you'll be able to hear most people's names and immediately have a good idea as to what gender they are. If you hear someone is called Sally, you can expect them to be female. Likewise, if you hear someone is called Brad, you can expect them to be male. Of course, more and more names are becoming more gender neutral, and many people do not identify the gender their name might suggest of them. Honestly, names and gender will one day have a video onto itself, but nevertheless, we still do associate certain names with people of a certain gender. Another example of a way we tend to associate a name with a kind of person is with ethnicity. You may think this is the same as nationality as we just mentioned, but they are two different things. Your nationality is the relationship between yourself and the nation you belong to, while ethnicity links to the race, culture or religion you identify as. So for myself, my nationality is British, but my ethnicity is Caucasian. So while we may associate certain names with a nationality, we can actually go deeper and link a name with a certain ethnic group of a nation. The best example of this we've actually covered in a video before, African American names. As I mentioned in that video, names like DeMarcus and Shanice are often associated with not just Americans, but African Americans specifically. What's interesting is the way that baby names come and go in trends. You'll always hear talk of what baby names are in and what baby names are out. Of course, due to this trend of baby names and certain names coming and going, it means that what were once the in baby names are now seemingly the out of date names for the older generation. And it's because of this we end up associating certain names with older people. Simply Google old people names and the likes of Albert and Doris will pop up. Perhaps the most interesting category, however, and the one that started off this video, are names that are associated with people of a certain economic and social group. This does also factor in some with age too, as the name Karen would have been popular in the past, and some of those baby Karens grew up to fit the role of unamused soccer mum. And thanks to this, the name Karen has become synonymous with all soccer mum archetypes. Likewise, with younger women, I read that the name Becky has grown something of a stereotype around it too. Becky apparently has become a name for people who have been characterized as snobbish young white girls with a love of Starbucks, iPhones and Ugg boots. Basically,
you're basic.
It seems female names are more often the ones that get stereotypes, as trends in baby names change much more for females than male names. However, that doesn't mean male names get off scot-free. The best example of a male name with a social stereotype that comes to mind for me has to be Chad. I think the name Chad conjures up an image of a jockey fraternity guy in most people's heads. It can be truly impressive what kind of image a single name can create in our mind. And like I said, for a lot of names, people's economic backgrounds and class can come into play. Names like Elizabeth, Charles and William are often seen as posh, upper-class names. However, I feel this is somewhat changing, as looking at a list of the most popular baby names, at least here in the UK, we can see many names that would have once been considered posh. Like I said at the start of this video, this was a look at stereotypes that have come about one way or another, and I can't stress enough how I really don't believe in these, despite how strong the association can get sometimes. Like, I really struggle to not think of a jock when I hear Chad, and of course with stereotypes comes a lot of negativity. One article I came across looked into what happens when your name becomes a meme. Karen, age 16 from Lebanon, said that having a name of a meme old mum is kind of a fun killer, but I haven't noticed such fact until I started using social media. While Karen, age 25 from California, said she doesn't mind the Karen meme at all. Like most things in life, different people have different opinions. Poor old 19-year-old Chad from Oregon even said that I feel like Chad is a douchebag name, and it does kind of have a stigma. Sorry Chad, I'm going to try and remove that stereotype from my head. And it gets worse, as one article I read talked about name snobbery. The writer explained how she wouldn't let anyone named Jade, Reese, Paige or Tyler in her house when talking about kids her kid might meet at school and want to come over. These stereotypes we have created with names have garnered such a stigma that has allowed people to justify judging and disliking others solely on their first name. I said this in the Muhammad video, but I'll say it again, please don't judge someone solely on their name. Now, this video has been something of a small view into the world of stereotypes and names, especially focusing on the English language. I'd be really interested in hearing some of the names that have associated stereotypes with them in your language and culture. And of course, I'd love to hear from people that have a name that carries a stereotype. Have you ever faced any issues or challenges due to the stereotype your name has? Do people expect you to act in a certain way solely due to your name? And now, speaking of acting a certain way due to your name, I better head to the pub, grab a pint of Guinness and partake in some river dancing. Thank you to all my patrons who support Name Explain on a monthly basis. Name Explain depends on small monthly donations from fans like you to help keep the channel running. Just a small amount of $2 a month helps out in a huge way, grants you patron exclusive Name Explain extras, and gets your name here with all these awesome people. Thank you.